Now, some of you may disagree with me, but children's drag acts and exposing children to sexualized performances is, in my opinion, wrong. But every time I talk about this online, my replies are full of people saying, you don't like panto then. And I think there's a big, big difference between the two. Now, joining me to explain this is Stella O'Malley. Stella, welcome. Can you first of all start off by saying, what is the difference between a pantomime and a drag queen?
Well, they both have a history, and they have two different histories, and they have two different words because they mean two different things. So a pantomime goes back a long, long time, and it would have been in the theatres back in the day where men were dressing up as women, and it was very family-oriented fun. And, you know, some people wouldn't like it. I personally don't think it's the funniest thing ever. But certainly on a certain level, I can see kids who are giggling along at the man who's dressed up as a woman and the woman has big boobs. And isn't it also hilarious? So it's kind of sweet watching the kids laugh at it, especially at a certain age. And it's very definitely pushing the boundaries, but knowing when to come back. It's never sexualized. It's touching the boundaries of saying a bold word. It's touching the boundaries of various kind of things. And they do say bold words, but in a kind of funny way. And that is the pantomime, and it's well established. Drag queen has a very different history. It's a very different scene. And I don't understand why they want to even be anywhere near children, because they began in bars and in nightclubs. That's where the drag queen, the drag show started. And they started in nightclubs and in bars as adult entertainment. So like strippers. So it's equivalent. Right. It's a sexy, risque act that takes the pantomime dame and it completely goes to a different place, and it goes very sexualized, and it's talking to adults. It's actually much cleverer humor, much wittier, but it's sexualized. It's completely sexualized. So it's a different thing. You couldn't really put an analogy to the two of them because they're different, which is why they have different names.
Would the key not be what is age appropriate and what's not? So pantomime, you said they walk a very tight line between what's a euphemism and what's appropriate for children, whereas a drag queen is generally a sexualized version of a bloke dancing around in skinky women's clothes.
Yeah, it is. Drag queens are for adults. Drag queens are specifically risque, sexy, funny shows that have started in adult entertainment. It started in pubs and clubs, and there it should have remained. And like, some people find it very misogynistic, some people find it very offensive. Whether it is or not, one of the elements, remember earlier on you said, in my opinion, it's abusive for children. It actually is abusive for children to be exposed to sexual content. That is part of the definition of child sex abuse, which is to expose children to sexualized content. That is an element of child sex abuse, and it's not getting said enough.
So let's get to that. What is the impact of sexualizing children at such a young age through means like introducing them to drag queens?
It's actually really horrible because they feel very distressed. They feel very uneasy. Exposing children to sexual content before they are sexual themselves, they don't quite know what to do with it. They feel turned off. It's a very nasty and not nice introduction to sex. And it has a lingering kind of taste in their mouth of, it's not very nice. I know Russell Brand, the celebrity, he wrote about it in his book, that he was exposed to sexualized content when he was a child, and it didn't go well for him. And he writes about it very eloquently, and it's quite sad how he was exposed. And these days we need to be more careful than ever, because it's so easy for a kid to fall into seeing sexualized content. And it makes them feel uneasy. You can see it in their faces. They look a little bit freaked out. And it's just nasty. It's not nice. And it's beyond that, it's part of the definition of child sex abuse, to expose a child to sexualized content. That needs to be bang, you know?
Absolutely. Let's put a stop to it. Stella O'Malley, thank you so much for your time today. That's Stella O'Malley, psychotherapist and director at GenSpect. We did ask some drag queens to come on, but they refused.